Hello and welcome to this programming course. Let's start with a really simple program. I'm going to do this in Microsoft Visual Studio. So I have it open here and a Solution Explorer is showing. So I want to add a brand new item. I will right click on the Source Files option, add a new item. A window pops up and I want to make a C++ program, so I pick that and I just give it a name here, and I just want to call it hello because we're doing hello world. So we'll add that, and now we have the editing panel visible here. So let's just type this in from the very beginning. I'll use some comments. A couple of slashes represent a comment. That means anything on this line will be ignored. It will not be compiled as part of the program. And let's just call this C++ first program. And then let's add another couple of slashes. If you've done a C program before, then you know that we have to have some pound includes to get the compiler directives. So in C++, we still use pound include, and then we use the triangular braces, and in between them, we list whatever library we want. So this is IOStream. And if you haven't used C++ before, then you might notice that we don't have a .h here. Okay, so with C++, we typically don't use the .h extension. All right, now I'm going to include 4 libraries, which will be libraries that we will need to use during this course. And not every program will need each one, but if we do them once, then we can copy and paste them for all the other programs. Okay, so fstream lets us use files. The IOStream just lets us use input from the keyboard and output to the terminal. We'll also have a pound include or something called IO manip. If I can type it, IO-NANIP. So these are called manipulators, and we use the manipulators to format the output, and you'll see those coming up in a future program. And the last one I'm going to use is string. Okay, string is a special thing in C++, and we will be able to take advantage of the string library, and that gives us advantages over just declaring things to be character arrays, and you'll see that as well. So these 4 compiler directives will give us what is essentially function prototypes for lots and lots of things that we will put in our programs later. Now it's also convenient to use a namespace. So I'm going to use namespace standard, and a semicolon follows that. So this is the header then of a typical C++ program, and we could just copy and paste it and go from there for all of our future programs. It would work just fine, and in fact that's what you'll see me doing in future lessons. Now we have the main program, and I usually do this with making a type integer, okay, main, and normally void here, because in these programs we aren't going to be using a command line to start the program up, so we don't have any input parameters. Then the body is enclosed with the curly braces, and at the bottom we will have a return 0. Now this isn't absolutely necessary, but if you have a function and the main program is a function, it's a type integer, then technically we should return an integer, 0 in this case, at the bottom. The other thing that I will use in my programs is going to be something called a system pause. So system, double quote, pause, double quote, right paren, semicolon. Now this is not a C++ feature. This is a Windows command only. Okay, so what this does is it will pause the program at whatever line that this occurs on. So in this case there's not much going on afterwards, but you can use these pause statements throughout your program, and the program will execute up to one of these pause statements, and then you can hit the run button again and it will continue after that. So this just lets me break the programs up into sections to illustrate different things. But if you are not running on a Windows computer, then do not use this. Okay, this is strictly a Windows command only. Now, to complete our little program, let's write something out to the screen. And it's called Hello World, so let's just write Hello World. Okay, the output statement is cout, and this thing is called an insertion operator. So if you are writing out to the terminal, then it points to the left, and whatever you want to output, we can type here between double quotes, and this is just Hello World. Let's put an exclamation point there, and then we'll use another insertion operator and an end line. So this end line, that just means we're going to have the cursor go to the next line after it prints Hello World. Now, this has all of the features of the most basic C++ program. And let me point out that if you have seen other things in the past, like a pound include, say, our standard library, stdlib.h, then you can still use that. You can see we do not get any errors. There are no errors here, there are no red underlines, so you can still use the .h technique or extension if you want to include some libraries as well. Just remember, C++ is an extension of the older C programming language. So everything that worked in C also works in C++. Now let's go ahead and compile this program to make sure it works. So in Visual Studio, I can do a build, and if there are any errors, then it will show up here in this panel. So this one says it succeeded, so there were no errors. Now, in order to execute the program and see the output on the screen, I can click this little green triangle, or I could hit the F5 function key, and up comes the output window. So let's get the output window up. There it is. So here's the output. All right, so this, let's move some stuff out of the way so we can see that. Okay, so here's the output window, and there it is. So Hello World, and then to press any key to continue, that is the result of this pause statement right there. So that causes this statement, press any key to continue. All right, so that is the first program. I'm going to hit enter, and since I'm using Visual Studio 2019, I get this additional thing. You can see it's Visual Studio 2019. If you're using earlier versions, you'll not see it. And of course, if you're using something other than Windows, you'll see whatever your programming environment gives you. Now, I close the window, and the program is completed. So there you have it. There's your first program in in C++, and I'm not going to keep this in future programs, the standard lib.h. It was just an illustration. So that is all we need for our first program. It would be good if you typed all this in as I did, and you make sure you understand all of these lines. In the future, we will talk about what a namespace is, and we'll look at some of these function prototypes that are in these headers as well.